Hey, it's Kristen with thewaywardhome.com, and thanks for joining this session of the Van Life Virtual Summit. Today we're talking van builds with Stephen Stolp of Sandy Vans and Stolp Solutions. We're talking about tips on how to apply your creative vision to your van and with your layout. So, Stephen, first of all, tell us about yourself and what led you to start building vans.
Well, as you said, I am Stephen Stolp. I am proud owner of Stolp Solutions and Sandy Vans. Basically, I got into van building kind of as an accident. I converted an ambulance randomly one year and it got a lot of positive feedback on the good old internet. So before I knew it, after I graduated business school, I had a long list of people wanting me to build weird ambulances for them. And then I got well known in the ambulance community, which now propelled me into the Mercedes Sprinter community. So
Very cool. So you only work on sprinters now?
yeah, so Sandy Vans is a Mercedes Sprinter, like 144 wheelbase only. And I kind of had to hone in on something because when I first started, I was just like, yes, I will build you a rocket ship, and didn't have enough planning that went into that. Like the builds turned out great, but it wasn't a sustainable business for me. So that is why I'm going with Sandy Vans.
Very cool. And tell me a little bit about why you chose to go with the Sprinter over the other vans.
So, well, I'm down in San Diego, so the market definitely dictated that. If I was in some like, backwoods kind of country or Colorado or something like that, I probably would have done great at continuing the 4x4 off-road ambulances that I was creating. But yeah, just strictly based off market and being able to take care of my family, I decided to do the Mercedes Sprinters.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit about designing van build interiors. That's a difficult task. What are some things that you have in your head before you start on a new van and the interior layout?
I have this weird snapshot that happens that in the end, um, I look at the van after it's done and I'm like, it's like kind of deja vu. So I know that's a really weird way to describe it, but creatives are kind of weird people. But basically I just I get the layout and I think about how the ceiling is going to work with the cabinets and the wall material and the counters. And I could kind of all see it at once. So my biggest challenge when I first started build is like telling people what I see as far as the entire vision. So I don't do SketchUp or anything. I'm definitely a pencil and paper kind of guy, but yeah, it really helps to have a customer that trusts me, or my build team that knows that I'm going to direct them in the right path.
Yeah, for sure. And so if someone's building out their own van and they have ideas in their head, how do they narrow in on a layout? Do you have any tips for like translating the ideas into an actual layout?
Yeah, and I mean, I keep it very simple. I just literally go through the van after I put the subfloor and the laminate flooring down. I go through and just take masking tape and tape everything off, and I kind of just stand around and navigate it and see. You got to have butt room. You got to have your I even tape on the walls and stuff so I know where all the cabinetry is. And I just kind of go in there. It looks like a little bit of a mess in the beginning with masking tape, but that really helps you visualize where everything's going to go. But that's what I would recommend. That's what I did in the beginning. I don't do that stuff anymore. But as a DIYer, it's just much easier to visualize it if you have that physical representation right in front of you.
Yeah, and I've heard some people say that you should go and like live in the van before building it out, or at least go try it and see what it feels like. Do you have any recommendations about that?
Knowing what you want is very important, especially if you're going in to hire somebody like me or build your van yourself. I definitely, sorry, he wants to be in front of the camera for whatever reason. But yes, it's very important knowing what you want. So some people, they're just like, I want the sink here, I want an oven here, I want this, and that's great for a builder. I've been in situations where people were not clear on what they wanted as a layout. And one time it didn't go so well because they didn't know what they wanted. So I really strongly recommend you go in, you go camping with it, or you hang out in another person's van, or you rent a van, and figure out the things that you truly want before you start any sort of process.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So people should think about like their lifestyle and what components they need. What should they be like thinking about when deciding what to put in the van?
Well, creature comforts, I could go pitch a tent in the woods just about anywhere. So my personal van is very, very bare bones simple. It just has a whole lot of cheetah print on the inside, and that's what I like. But yeah, so if you're kind of more of a bougie individual and you live in like a high rise in downtown, you're probably going to want, heated floors and a shower inside and all that stuff. But if you're trying to get more in touch with nature, you may decide to do an outdoor shower or things that you just really got to hone in. This kind of goes back to our previous subject of knowing what you want. And it's pretty easy to discover that quickly if you're not okay with just a Planet Fitness membership to go shower and stuff like that. So
Yeah, what are some like common questions you get from people trying to decide on their layouts? I'm sure you work with them to try to hone in on their vision. What kinds of amenities do people typically like want or ask for?
I mean, I've done things as far as a bamboo steam room inside of an ambulance for an athlete. So I've had questions like all the way over there. I've had people want to put, big giant sofas in the middle of their vans and all sorts of stuff. And it's really the responsibility of the builder or yourself to know what works, and don't hone in on one thing. Like if you're like, I absolutely have to have this, then before you know it, you have an entire build based off that one attribute that you probably could have sacrificed. So it's good to take everything into consideration and not get tunnel vision on this one thing, because that's what I do see a lot. I see a lot of people say, I want an oven and a floor to ceiling fridge and a shower and this and that, and then when it's done, they're like, oh, it feels cramped in here. It's like, well, back to the masking tape. But yeah, so yeah, just knowing what you want and being practical about your ideas, because it is a van. It's not, you can't look at this like a 5-star hotel. I'll make it look like a 5-star hotel, but it's still got to bounce down the road. It's still got to be strong, and it's got to be practical.
Totally. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I do see a lot of luxury, looking vans, and I have heard stories of when they're not built correctly, they can kind of break apart, especially if you want to go down bumpy roads. Have you, like, what do you think about that, and how do you ensure that components are like not going to fall apart?
So upper cabinets are definitely one of those scary ones that I see a lot with people's builds. I'll like seeing videos. It's like kind of like hanging from the ceiling, and I'm like, you have a child in the back of your van, and you have like cabinets hanging off the ceiling. So um, yeah, securing cabinets and things like that is very important, because you have to basically create an earthquake proof home, and not just earthquake proof, like constant earthquake. That's how you have to treat it all. So, securing your cabinetry down properly, I mean, that could kill somebody. So that's why, as a builder, I try to, when I do see issues, I don't give unsolicited advice, but when people reach out to me, I usually just like, hey, like, drop it off in my shop. I'll fix all that for you. Um, but as far as the Sandy vans go, we tie all of the cabinetry into the frame that Mercedes provides us. So you could rest assured that none of that's going to come down. I've seen inadequate like drywall screws holding cabinets up and things like that, and it's just very dangerous. So I do recommend people know a thing or two about fastening and glue and all that stuff before they go ahead and take on a van build.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm still intrigued by you building a steam room in someone's van. That's very interesting and creative. What other interesting like components have you put in vans that might be surprising to people?
Oh yeah, so this one called Amber. Some of you may have seen it on the interwebs. I did a van tour with Jared Tochi. I hope I said that right, Jared. I know we're friends. We did a tour, and that had an RFID gun safe inside of it that it looked like regular cabinetry, and you swiped a card on the shelf of the on the bottom shelf of the cabinet, and then the entire hatch dropped open, and it was like illuminated. It was like this long, obviously requested by the client, and yeah, that was a really cool feature. I've gotten a lot of emails about, people like, hey, let me get one of those gun safes in my van, and I'm just all like, well, that's a custom job. My very first van I did though was a Ford Transit. I called the Vandemic, and it's because I built it during the pandemic, and that had a Murphy, or not a Murphy bed. It had a robotic bed that folded into the ceiling. So it literally, like, as it lowered, it pushed into the wheel or into the window wells. And then when you had to go up, it folded into the ceiling. And it wasn't a happy jack. It wasn't anything like that. It was literally like a $200 thing I bought off Amazon and made it work. So those are some of the cool ones. Made robotic Murphy beds before. Lots of weird electronics. A lot of people know me for my light features that I do as well. So it's kind of across the board.
Cool. So what are your light features? What do those look like?
So I got into van building because before I was into furniture making, I was like kind of working a lot with epoxy and fully winging it. I had like no formal training or anything, but I mean, I was selling coffee tables for a good buck, and I would, I mean, I've done light features where the like the actual epoxy has lights cut into the bottom of it, and like you walk in the van and all the countertops turn on because they're like on motion sensors, and they're blocked. So if you're sleeping, they won't set off. But just like, a mixture between like electronics and art has always been very cool to me. So that's why I really enjoy kind of messing with lights. I do like the strip lighting through the ceiling, and it's all diffused and everything, and it looks indirect. Which that is a scalable design that you will be seeing in more Sandy vans moving forward. But yeah, my favorite light feature I did though was I did an entire epoxy edge on a counter, and it looked like the ocean crashing onto the wood. And I hand carved out like sandbars and stuff like inside, and then I poured the mold. And it wasn't just a straight counter either. It was all like it was curved and everything. And then I put blue LED inside of it that was fully diffused. So then when it turned on, it just looked like a glowing blue ocean, like crashing onto a wood countertop. And it wasn't something that the customer asked for. It was just something that I felt like adding to the van.
That's really cool, and that's inspiring for people that people can be creative and artistic when building out vans, it sounds like. Is there anything they should keep in mind surrounding the artistic part of a van build?
Yeah, so careful also with the artistic stuff because you could hone in on one artistic design, or like if you want like a wall in a certain spot that correlates with something. If you tunnel in on stuff too much with the art, you're just going to build your van around one piece of art, which if that's what you're trying to do, that's cool. But beware of trying to incorporate one thing into your entire van. But I think the best way to go about that stuff is to kind of piecemeal it out and figure out, like, have solution based creativity. So while you're doing something, you're like, oh, if I add a piece here, it may like hide this imperfection, or it may, make this look better, rather than from the beginning knowing exactly what kind of art you're going to put in there. Because everything that I just described to you in the previous question was on the fly. I was inside the van and I was like kind of feeling the flow of it. And I'm like, okay, well, if this goes here and that goes here, it'll look amazing. And I think that that is the best way to harness your creativity inside one of these builds.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And you mentioned you work on 144 wheelbase, and that's what I have as well. And there's only so much you can shove into that. You were saying that some people want so much that they have like no room inside. And I'm just curious, like, how do you balance like luxury with the space to move around?
So with Sandy Van specifically, we're doing modular. Like, so this, the whole back half of this van can be kind of configured however you want, because it's based off, you know, all of the custom jobs that I've done in my past with Stolp Solutions, and it's combined into this 144. One of the things that I really like about the modular design is because typically when you go camping and stuff, there's a lot of setup. But if you have a van that's designed to be set up and taken down, it's not very inconvenient. If I've lived in a Sandy van full time, and it has a king size bed in the back, but it also has dining for 8. So I think keeping the modular aspect of the thing in a 144 specifically is very important. If you do a fixed bed, you're really kind of stuck with that. But some people want to be that way. If you want more, then you need to get a bigger van. But I personally like the 144s because I don't mind taking 45 seconds to set up my bed after having 7 homies sitting down with me in the same location. So
Cool. Yeah, give me some examples of the modular. So that's just with the, is it a bed couch conversion, or what are some of your modular components?
So the table is just a simple U-bench dinette. It's a very popular design that a lot of companies have already done. I don't think it's anybody's idea to steal at this point. But it's yeah, it's as simple as the table drops in, and then there's another leaf, and then that whole back half of the, actually more than the back half of the van, turns into a king size bed. And I'm currently working on having the ability to take the benches out as well, and then having a bench platform that could attach to the L track that is already installed in the Sandy vans that can be a fixed bed across. So then the customer has the ability to customize the modular portion of the design for themselves. So I don't have to sit there with a pen and paper for hours trying to pick my client's brain anymore. This is, you know, I'm kind of trying to make the Swiss Army knife of vans.
Yeah, that's a great point, to do the modular so people can configure it how they want, and then there's so many options.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. There's right now, I mean, there's at least like 30 different configurations. So
yeah, yeah. Are you seeing that most people want like a bathroom and a shower inside? I know that again, the 144s are small. What are you seeing surrounding that?
So toilets are obviously, a lot of people really want toilets in their van. The reason I separate toilet from bathroom, because you know I try to steer as many people as I can away from having a wet bath inside their van, because I am a big fan of like old school vehicles, and I've had old RVs and all sorts of stuff. And every single one of them has mold, mildew, all that stuff in the wet bath area. So it does not matter how talented you are at installing, how much you waterproof things. It at some point, water will get in places that you do not want it. It could be 3 years, it could be 10 years, but eventually it will happen. So to increase the longevity of your build, I strongly recommend outdoor shower solutions and things like that. And if you're kind of worried about the cold, well, I've had a diesel heater cranking in one of the Sandy vans, blowing heat out the back, and I was taking a shower like in the snow out the back. I had a curtain and everything, but yeah, so you can take an outdoor shower even if it's cold out.
That's true. That's only what we do, so I highly recommend it. And so what are some of your, like, outdoor shower, options that people can put?
Well, I mean, outdoor showers, in a Sprinter, it's probably the easiest thing to do. You run a hot water line to the back. I mean, I usually run hot and cold, so it's on a mixer. Um, but yeah, you just run water to the back, and then you have like either a hose, or if you want to get fancy, I could put like whatever like shower head handle on it, and it kind of, you just hook it to the door, and the Sprinter width of the doors are actually the exact same size as a standard shower curtain that you could get at Target or whatever. So it's really nice if somebody gets one of these vehicles, like you don't have to find an upholstery place to make yourself a new shower curtain. But basically they just magnetize with little like earth magnets with carabiners on them, and then they just hook to the outside. In San Diego, it's very popular to have the outdoor shower because, you know, we build for a lot of like surfers and things like that. So it's a very common practice for them already.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And, when you look at DIY builds, what are some common mistakes that you see that hopefully people can avoid by listening to this?
If you are not an electrician, if you have never been certified or anything with electricity, please consult at least with somebody, or I recommend hiring. I have seen very, very dangerous things. So to kind of cycle back, my background, I was in the Navy for 6 years in the advanced electronic computer field. So I'm well versed in electronics before I went into building vans. So that's just one thing I just don't recommend people tackling on their own if they've never done it before. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube, but there are a million mistakes you can make that those videos will not show you, and those mistakes could burn down your van. God forbid you're in it if that happens. So electrical is definitely a strikes a note with me a little bit. So
Yeah, for sure. And I do have people, like, writing to me and asking, like, projects instead of getting a whole custom build.
there are builders out there that are willing to, you know, do like just an electrical system. You know, typically I would advise people against like just adding something to your existing electrical system, like presenting that to somebody. I think it should be worded like, hey, can you like go through my electrical system and add this piece? Because I've had to, pretty much every electrical system that's come to my shop, I've had to fully overhaul. Um, and it's very unfortunate because I know they paid money to have that done, or they spent a lot of time doing it, and then they had to pay me to overhaul it. But it's safety, safety, safety. So yeah, I have all your ducks in a row with electrical and plumbing before you go to anyone.
Definitely. And I'm curious, just off the top of my head, have you ever seen a bathtub in a van? Has anybody ever done that?
Yeah, so I've seen one of the SoCal builders, one of his first client builds. They put a bathtub in, and I won't name names because I thought it was pretty ridiculous. Just like, you know, the client's always right, but that's something I think, as a professional company, you should really try to steer the client in the correct direction. Um, the reason I think bathtubs are not a good idea is because you're looking at a tub, and a tub to fit a human is about the size of a 55, 60 gallon water tank. Each gallon of water is 8 pounds. So that kind of, to fill up that tub, I mean, you would need 100-gallon water tank in order to support a tub in a van. So if you're in a giant schoolie or something where you could do stuff like that, like go for it. But in a van, yeah, it's just weight is really the biggest issue I think with that.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like it.
Practicality is the big one. Don't put clawfoot tubs in your sprinters, please.
Just go to a hot springs. That's what I would advise people. Way easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's the point of having a mobile home if you can't travel to a hot spring or two, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, so what does the process look like with you if someone was interested in building out, like, a van with you and you working with them on the layout?
Well, so with Sandy Vans, I kind of did all the layout work for you. I designed a van that I think is very practical. And if I'm not the right builder for you because you don't like that layout, you could go get a custom build by all means. However, at Sandy Vans, we are offering, you know, a very affordable, brand new Sprinter, fully built out, fully financed at 15 years. So it just, yeah, I mean, the whole process to me, it's a lot easier to do it this way because lead times are much less. My custom builds were taking 4 to 6 months, and my Sandy Vans builds can be done in like 2 weeks. So it's more about me being able to help more people, and that's why I dictate this layout so that I can provide you a van that I think will suit your needs faster.
Very cool. And are people choosing, like, the interior colors and stuff, or it does it
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Right.
like if they want like crazy, like fancy lighting and you know, they want a different kind of countertop and they have customizable attributes, absolutely. And they do look very they're CNC'd, but they don't look CNC'd because it's a very simple layout, but with all the lighting and you know, I use real wood on the countertops and all the areas that well, I use real wood everywhere. But I'm just all the areas that are high visual, high traffic are they look custom. And that's the whole goal is to still give people the ability to make their van the way they want it to, but you know, have let me do the work because I've been in the industry of telling you you're getting a diesel heater, you're getting like you're getting this kind of diesel heater, you're getting this kind of water heater, you're getting this, you know. So I'm trying to do all the work for you, basically.
Fantastic. So how can people find you on the internet if they wanna work with you?
Well, if you want a good laugh, you could follow me on Instagram at Stolp Solutions. I do quite a bit of goofy stuff on there. And then if you want to book a build with me or even come down and check out the shop, I'd like you guys to visit www.sandyvans.com and come hang out with us and yeah, check out our vans.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the summit. Anything else you wanted to say?
Um, we also sell exterior products. No, I'm done with the sales pitch, but yeah, I mean, if any of you have any questions that you want to come directly to me, I try my best to answer everybody on social media. So if you just want to DM me directly at Stolp Solutions, I'd be happy to try my best to help you out in any way I can. Um, but yeah, be patient, you know, because I do get questions quite frequently. So
Totally. Well, that's a great service you offer, and hopefully people go check out your vans, and thanks for all the amazing tips.
yeah, thank you for